What's up, everybody? This is Mario, and welcome back to another episode of Talking Endurance and Mastery. And to start off, I've just got to give a shout out to one of the listeners of the podcast, Rob Wagner, because Rob called me up today, just kind of out of the blue, and said that he's been listening for the past 5 or 6 months, and he's really resonating with the message of trying to become your best through endurance. And Rob is a really impressive endurance athlete himself. He has done numerous ultra marathons, and he has been a training partner with me in the past. And it's kind of funny, we were talking about this where a few years ago he was talking to me about 50 milers and 100-mile ultra marathons and was telling me like that I should get into it. And at the time, I thought he was nuts. I'm like, Rob, that's like 50 miles. That's 100 miles. That's insane. I don't know if I could even do that. I don't know if I'll ever want to do that. And that was a few years ago when we were doing Ironman training, and I would see him at the pool for swimming, preparing for triathlons. And now this is where I'm at, and just did, Everesting. I've done a 50K, and now I've got a 50-mile ultra marathon in 3 weeks. So it's just kind of funny how things develop over the years, how you change, and how at one point something is so crazy impossible, but now it is something that you're actually pursuing. And so just wanted to give Rob a shout out and thank you so much for, reaching out to me and telling me how much you are resonating with the podcast. So wanted to start with that. But for today's episode, what I want to do is I want to keep talking about 29029. And at 29029, the night before the event, there were a couple of speakers. Jesse Itzler was one of them. Colin O'Brady was another one. And in Jesse Itzler's speech, he gave 7 tips to success for climbing Everest or for Everesting on the mountain. And what I want to do is I want to tell a few of his stories. I want to share those 7 tips and then tie it back to you and your goals. So first, I'm going to roll the trailer and then we're going to get into it. Do you want to complete an endurance event and elevate all areas of your life, but you don't know where to start? Then you're in the right place. Talking Endurance and Mastery is a podcast to help you create a vision and take steps towards your goals and dreams. I'm your coach, Mario Minner. I've completed events like Ironmans and ultra marathons, but I believe the true benefit from endurance events is how they help you become the best version of yourself. Join me as I share stories, lessons, and interview guests to help you apply endurance and mastery principles into every area of your life. Are you ready? Let's go. All right. So like I mentioned, the night before the event, all 200 or 250 participants got into a room, and then there were a couple of speeches to get everybody kind of pumped up for the event, but also to share some strategies of how to be successful on the mountain. And one of my favorite speakers at the event was Jesse Itzler. And I've talked about Jesse. He's an entrepreneur. He is an endurance athlete. He's a very devoted dad. And he has a couple of different programs, one called Build Your Life Resume, another one called 30 Days of Excellence. And he's just an inspiring guy. And what he did is he shared the 7 tips to success on the mountain and in Everesting. But the way that he kind of opened up his speech is he told the story of playing his dad in checkers. And he played his dad in checkers his whole life, and his dad never let him win. And I think as parents, right, sometimes you kind of want to build up your kids' self-esteem, and maybe sometimes you let up and you let your kids win to make them feel good. But Jesse Itzler's dad never let him win in checkers. In 50 plus years, he had never beaten his dad in checkers until recently. This past year, they played, and he finally beat his dad in checkers. And he was describing like how amazing it felt. Everybody was laughing. He talked about how he was just celebrating this victory in checkers. But what he talked about is the reason why it felt so good was because he earned it. It wasn't handed to him. He earned it by playing his dad year after year after year after year. And after, 50 plus years, he finally beat him and he earned it. And he told that story to kind of set things up about how it's going to feel on the mountain. Because at the end of the 17 ascents and 29,029 feet, you get a red hat and you get a red bib. And that red hat is not given to anybody. It is earned. And that's why it's going to mean so much. And so he kind of just set up his speech by talking about how important it is to earn it. And then he started talking a little bit about mental toughness. And, his phrase, which I really liked, was okay, mental toughness is something that it's it's developed not by watching all of these, you know, inspirational movies or watching YouTube clips or thinking about it. It's earned by sharpening your teeth by doing hard things, and it's earned by experiencing it. And when you're doing something really hard, when it starts to get hard, his phrase is, "When it starts to get hard, what you should say is, 'What took you so long?'" And kind of just welcome and laugh at that hard experience and that hard moment. And so I just really like, first of all, I really like that phrase of, "All right, what took you so long?" So that's something that I kind of wrote down in my notes. And then he just talked about how important it was to just keep going, keep going, keep going, and keep chipping away. So he set up his speech by talking about the checkers, talking about mental toughness, and then he got into the actual strategy. And this part was helpful for me, where he talked about the 7 things that you need to do to be successful on the mountain, because he had done it a couple of times before. He's a co-founder of the event. He's seen a lot of people be successful. So the first thing that he said, his first tip was fix the problems early. And so what he means by this is blisters, if you're cold in the gondola and all of these different like smaller things, you need to fix them early, because small problems become catastrophes if they're not addressed. And it's kind of this snowball effect. So when you first encounter a problem, if it's really small, try and fix it right away. So I like that thinking. And it was something that I applied when I was on the mountain. The second thing that he talked about is rest on the mountain. So with this event, like I've talked about, you hike up the mountain, take the gondola down, and then you hike up again. But there is a whole rest and recovery room where once you get off the mountain, you can walk over, you can chill in the recovery room. And what he said was, you when you're resting, you want to rest on the mountain, rest on the gondola, rest at the aid stations. Lay down or sit down on the mountain if you have to. And he really talked about trying to take that decision away and saying, I'm not going to rest in the recovery room. I'm going to rest on the mountain. And I think it was a really kind of cool way of thinking about taking that decision away. And when you get off of the gondola after you've climbed up the mountain, you need to turn right. And his thing with turn right is, instead of turning left, going to the recovery room or going to the lodge to rest, turn right and do another lap. And that was a big part of resting on the mountain. Then the third thing that he talked about was to do the math. And what he means by this is you need to kind of calculate with an event like this. When you only have 36 hours, you have 17 ascents. You need to, after you've done that first hike, you need to do the math and see, okay, how long did it take for me to go up this mountain? How long was it for me to refuel on nutrition? How long was it to go down the gondola and then to start your second lap? And you need to do the math early on, get that first summit in, take your time, and then you need to factor in how much time you have to rest. He talked about how important it was to do the math, because a lot of people maybe start off, they do 1 or 2 or 3 ascents, and then they get tired, they end up resting and recovering, and then they go back out, they do another one or two, they rest even longer because they're more tired, and they're basically playing catch up. And if you don't do the most of your work in an event like this on the first day, it's going to be really hard to catch up. So, number three, his third tip is do the math. So far, what we've got is we've got fix the problems early. Number two, rest on the mountain. Number three, do the math. And number four, be great for one day. He talked about it. He's like, this is the Super Bowl, man. This is like everything builds up to this. It's one day, actually 36 hours. But really, what he talked about is this is the Super Bowl. This is your Super Bowl. Show up, bring your best, and be an example for other people on the mountain. So be great for one day. Try and give as much effort as you can. Keep chipping away for one day. That was tip number four. Tip number five is one that I've talked about, and it's just keep chipping away, moving forward. It's this concept of relentless forward progress. In an event like this, you've got to just keep moving forward. And I think that that is such a good metaphor for your goals. When it gets hard, you just got to keep chipping away. You've got to just keep moving forward. Number six is be present. So again, you don't want to think about how many more you have. You just want to focus on the one that you're doing. I've talked about this on the podcast. This is a big lesson that I learned. Whenever you get caught up and you get overwhelmed about all the things that you need to do, you just need to come back, focus on the present moment, be where your feet are, and get the current one done. And then the seventh thing, finish like a champion. And he says, if you're going to finish like a champion. He told this big story about his 100-mile race. I'm not going to go into it today, but I will do a separate podcast episode on this one because I really liked the story that he told here. But, everybody talks about how did you start something, but he's really focused on how did you finish it. And so those are the 7 tips on success in Everesting and success in climbing Mount Everest in the mountain. And so, again, I'll just recap. Number 1, fix the problems. Number 2, rest on the mountain. Number 3, do the math. Number 4, be great for one day. Number 5, keep chipping away. Number 6, be present. Number 7, finish like a champion. And so, the reason why I walk through these 7 tips is because I think that these 7 apply if you're hiking up a mountain doing 29,029 feet, or if you're doing any type of goal. And so as I bring it back to you, I want you to think about your goals. And, I'm going to go through these 7 things, and I'm just going to turn those 7 tips into 7 questions. So number 1, are you fixing, when it comes to your goals, are you fixing the problems that you're seeing early? Are you addressing them early because they can turn into bigger issues? Number 2, are you incorporating rest with your goals? Are you resting on the mountain? This means, resting throughout the day and recharging, resting on the weekends, doing whatever you do to have your energy full for your goal. 10, are you doing the math? Do you have a good strategy? Number 11, are you being great at what you do? Are you really seeking mastery? Another one. Next question. Are you chipping away? Are you constantly moving forward with your goals? Next question. Are you present? Are you in the present moment with your goals? And then the last one. Are you going to finish like a champion? So those are the 7 tips of Everesting, and bringing it back to you, the 7 questions that you can ask yourself with any of your goals and dreams. And if you can answer yes to those questions that I just asked, then you're in a great spot with your goals and your dreams. And so that is what I have for today. If you found any sort of value in it, please leave a 5-star review. Tell me a quick story. Which of those 7 did you like? Which one are you going to apply? And do that in the actual review. It helps spread this message of becoming your best through endurance. So that's what I have for today. Until next time, I'll talk to y'all later.